everybody. Welcome back to Suspenders Unbuttoned Podcast. My name is Sarah.
And I'm Julie, and we're excited to welcome Andrew Gernhard from Synthetic Cinema. Welcome, Andrew.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're great. We're excited to have you on. We are very familiar with a lot of your projects, so it'll be fun to kind of get to know you and get to know what you do. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Synthetic Cinema International and how that came to life?
Well, we've been around now for going on 21 years. We started off in very non-Hallmark movies. We did monster movies and horror movies, when Blockbuster Video, for those of you who remember Blockbuster Video was around. VHS, which I know is ancient history. Then DVDs.
I have my Blockbuster card somewhere, yeah.
And I think they just closed down the last Blockbuster in America, I think, just closed down.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, we did a bunch of monster movies, which moved into kind of thriller movies for Lifetime. Then we did a Christmas movie called Wishin' and Hopin', which is based on Wally Lamb's novella. And that kind of moved us right into Christmas movies. And most of the movies we make now are Christmas movies for Hallmark, Netflix, Paramount, Lifetime, whoever needs Christmas movies that are a little bit more fun, a little bit bigger than they need to be. We specialize in that.
We love big and fun Christmas movies. So you started this production. We love that so many production companies do thriller, horror as part of the things they do. Super fun piece of information we've learned along our way. And but when you're starting, is there anything that inspired you early on, like a film or a director, or the way some movies were? What inspired you early on?
Well, in the beginning, I'm still and always will be a big fan of Steven Spielberg. I think he's one of the greatest directors. Because he can just do so much. He's not in like a niche genre. Like he does Killer Sharks, he does Aliens, he does feel good movies, he does romance, and to me, he's the greatest director because he's not just a visual director. He's a performance director. He's he directs the shots. He's everything. Where like Tarantino, you're like, oh, he's fast, quick wit. And Michael Bay is huge shots, but less focused on acting. And Spielberg, to me, just is like the apex of what a director is. And Jaws was one of my favorite movies. But my ultimate movie is Ghostbusters. It always 1984 Ghostbusters. And I still love Ghostbusters to this day. The most recent movie wasn't great in my books, but it was still a Ghostbusters movie, so I will still always go see them.
It's hard to compete with a classic like Ghostbusters. So to have like a new version of it,
Yeah, I think it's hard because the movies that we grew up on are now legend. You know what I mean? They're like nostalgia and legend, and it's made. Everything made now is made by a whole different group of filmmakers, 2 times generations from who made those original ones. So it's their point of view of how movies and they should be displayed and directed. So it's a little different, but you embrace that. And I like, different movies are taking a new spin on something old.
Yeah. So how did you get into making movies? You grew up loving them, but then what was the next step?
I went to college for a television production at Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven. And I had a minor in graphic design, which are, somewhat kind of related. And I started doing children's videos with another company called Mazzarella Productions out of Bristol, Connecticut. And then it led into a shot-for-shot parody of Jaws called Trees, about a killer great white pine tree versus a botanist, a lumberjack, and a forest ranger. And that kind of went to all the, the video stores, and it became a little culty. And that led me into doing these campy monster movies that everybody liked to watch.
I mean,
that's so funny.
But you went to school to do film production. That's what you wanted to do. When did you know? How early did you know you wanted to go to school for that?
Well, I knew I wanted to be in television film in high school, which was now I graduated in '95. Oh goodness, I have a 30-year anniversary coming up. But I went to the Norwich Free Academy, which is an art school, an art high school, and I went to school with a very much talented group of individuals that were great in the fine arts, and I knew I was not going to excel in beating them at any type of college programs. So I actually went into video production, and I taught myself through, public access, I think it's called. And I did public access. I did my own commercials, and that kind of led me to doing, videos for college. And that's how I got into college. I got a great little scholarship to get out there and work and learn television production.
Oh, that's so fun. Okay, so you mentioned earlier that you've kind of stayed in this Christmas movie arena, I guess. So what is it about a movie of the week, and in particular Christmas movies, that you enjoy doing, and why did you end up kind of specializing in that, I guess you could say?
Well, I love all movies. I will do any type of movie, but what's interesting about Christmas movies, particularly Christmas movies with large audiences like Hallmark or Netflix, because we did the Noel Diary for Netflix, which was really really well and well taken in. But a lot of our Hallmark films, I love it how they connect with the fans and that people enjoy them. They've that feel good through line of the whole story. But they're also, our movies typically are in someplace exotic like Iceland and Love in Iceland, or in The Christmas Quest this past year with Lacey,
right.
Or they're time travel like Next Stop Christmas. So they're a Hallmark, but they're a little bit more expanded. And I love, I work with a great group of people, domestically in America and also internationally, and they really love what they do. And I think that's the difference with us and a lot of other television producers, is we love what we do. They're not about making, I want to make 20 movies this year. I'd rather make 4 really great movies than do a volume of movies. And that means a little extra time, maybe a little extra money, a little extra effort. And I like making $1,000 look like $10,000, and I really put in a lot of effort. I work with a lot of locations. I work with a lot of local companies, and we try and put our best foot forward. And I just love, we see the live views when they're watching these Hallmark movies and what people say about them, and it really pushes us to do better and bigger the next time we go out to make them.
So would you say your spot, like how you make your own niche in this movie of the week genre, is bringing some of those unique things that like a destination or a point of view to your movies?
Yeah, exactly. Because there are, as you well know, there are literally hundreds of Hallmark movies. Whether they're acquisitions or they're full blown original movies. When you say it's nice when people can recognize your movies over the plethora of movies that are out there, because you can say, oh, I make a Hallmark movie, and they'll say, oh, is it about the girl who left the big city and married the Christmas tree farmer? And you're like, no, it's Biltmore Christmas. And you're like, wow, we know Biltmore Christmas, or Next Stop Christmas, or the Iceland one, or something that's different that it's ingrained in their head. Or even Where Are You Christmas, the black and white and color one that was like Pleasantville. They're all something that is memorable, and that's what I like to make sure our Christmas movies are memorable. And even going into this next year, we have some really great movies coming out that we're wishing and hoping that people like these new movies.
I mean, even just in, let's just use Hallmark as the example, but in their lineup of 50-something movies, you still find a way to make yours stand out from the others in the whole lineup. So that's really neat. How do you find your stories?
Well, a lot of it, I work with a lot of talented people. I work with Dustin Reichert, who's a co-producer and a director, and Colin Thays, who's a director and a producer, and Molly Mayu. And we kind of brainstorm ideas. We present them to Hallmark, and they kind of say, oh, this works, this doesn't work. And a lot of our movies are brought to life through Hallmark. We have a very wonderful support system at Hallmark. A lot of executives, like us and support us, and they know that they'll give us something hard because they know we can do it. That's the whole thing. Like, a lot of times, like, oh, these guys, if anybody can make this movie, it'll be these guys. Because they're not the biggest budget movies, but they're decent budgets. But, taking a chance to send us to Finland to shoot, 60 dogs in a race across Finland for a TV movie is insane. But we did it. I mean, we went to Finland and we did it because they knew we could pull it off. And, the support system at Hallmark is great. They really believe in our movies. And some movies, that we develop, sometimes they're this year, sometimes they're next year, sometimes they're years later. Yeah. But, we're constantly coming up with new and fun things to do, and hopefully original things. But it's very hard. There's so many stories out there. It's getting hard to find that original movie. But we have some good ones coming up, which I'm very excited for.
That is exciting.
Coming up.
What's that?
How many do you have coming up?
We at least have a couple this year. So we'll see what they turn out to be. There are a couple, and they're very different, which is good. Different but the same. They're still going to hit all the beats that Hallmark loves.
Right, you got to follow those beats. So when you're working on a film, what is the process like when you're going to go from, okay, we're going to move this project forward, to work with directors and writers and actors? How does that roll out?
Well, for one thing, I like to work with good people. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, 21 years, and one thing about Hollywood and television and film production is there's various degrees of people out there, and I like to make sure that I work with people who are really love what they do and really are compassionate for other humans. And so I am lucky enough that I work with some great people who are talented and very team focused, project focused. So, that's what I kind of focus on, is the experience of making the movies, because I've realized that when you have a happy crew, when you have a happy production, when you have happy executives, the project always comes out better. And, why make a Christmas movie stressful? It doesn't have to be. There's obviously the stresses of budgets and time constraints and different demands here and there. But and we all have our days that we're like pulling our hairs out. But, it's always better when you got people that have your back.
Yeah. So when you are you on set, or are you more a behind the scenes person, or how do you...
One thing about me, I am everything. I am there when we start a project. I'm there from the very beginning until the very end. And I am, I never overlap. I try to never overlap shooting schedules. We can be in post on a couple things or prep. Mm-hmm. But I'm not saying that I make the movie myself. I don't. It's a full team. But I like to make sure I'm there every shoot day. Checking on everything, checking with all the departments, making sure everything's smooth, and keeping everything in order. Molly, who works with me, she gave me a shirt that says I'm a control enthusiast.
I like that.
So I have to get a new one. I've worn it so much now, it's worn out. But I like to be involved from beginning to end. I don't like to be somebody who is just like oversees everything, gets a project and sends it out into the world to be made by who knows who. So I like to be involved, from the very stitch to the last stitch.
When you are making these movies or whatever you're shooting, do you often use the same crews or same directors? You're talking about having a team that you like to work with.
Yeah, we're open to working with new people all the time, because that's the only way you find new friends, you find new talent. But recently in America, I work a lot in the East Coast, Connecticut, Rhode Island. We're now in Buffalo, New York, and we've been down to Tennessee and Alabama, and we've been Kentucky. And we do have crew members that overlap. We have a great DP called Brandon Maxim. Dustin Reichert's a producer-director. Colin Thays is a producer-director. So I do work with sometimes the core team is always the same. But even when we go overseas, we bring some of the keys in, like Keith Nielsen, our wardrobe guy. He's like Hallmark's #1 guy. He's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, he's the best wardrobe guy. And Daniel King, who's our production designer. He's done a lot of their big movies. He's also wonderful with the budget and with the art and design and production design. So I like to work with a lot of same people, but we're always open to working with new people. Like up here, we've a lot of them are locals from Buffalo, and we've embraced them. They've embraced us, and it's been a wonderful partnership working up here in Buffalo. And when we go overseas, we make new friends overseas in Ireland, Iceland, Finland, Scotland, and who knows where else we'll go. I might even go someplace tropical soon. That's a big thing.
Oh, well, that would be fun.
Yeah, something other than 0 degrees is always nice.
Yeah, you've had a lot of ice movies lately. The amount of text I received when that article came out that you were in Newport was making me laugh, because I'm from Rhode Island and I live here.
Really?
And I'm
very
like,
cool.
Are you going to set? Are you going to see it? And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So I think it's really fun that somebody's around in this area making movies.
Yeah, we kind of followed for that movie, which is Newport Christmas. We kind of followed what they're doing with Gilded Age, where in Gilded Age they kind of shot a bunch of the movie up in New York, on the other Hudson Valley area, and then they shot a bunch of it in Newport. And we couldn't really shoot in Rhode Island because they ran out of their tax credits because they're doing a big movie there, M. Night Shyamalan movie and a couple indie films. So we couldn't shoot the whole thing, but we did, just so people don't get upset, we did shoot a bunch of footage in Newport. We shot a couple days in Newport, and only certain set things were up here in Buffalo. But I think people will be surprised on how genuine it looks.
Oh, that's exciting. It's always funny when you're watching, when you know the area and you're watching something, you're like, that's not really.
Oh, we may trick some people. Not everybody, but we may trick some. Not everyone.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. So you just teased Newport Christmas. We know that that's hopefully coming out this year with Wes Brown, who we love. He's so nice. But what movie that you've done in the Hallmark world has had the biggest challenges? Like, can you give us a funny story about something maybe that was really difficult that you overcame and created these really beautiful movie?
Well, I think, one of my favorite movies is The Christmas Quest from last year because it has everything. I love Iceland. I love new Christmas traditions with the Yule lads. I love Lacey. I love Christopher. It was a great crew. I love the Iceland crew. And I think what was amazing about that movie was, it was a big movie for Hallmark. We were in ice caves and, in mountains and in downtown Reykjavik. I mean, stuff that you don't see in TV movies. And I think just the scope of that was the most challenging of it. And we even built a big layer for the on a stage of the Yule lads. And I think just for that it was the the temperatures. I mean, Lacey and Chris were out there. I think it was -14. Thank God there was the northern lights over them to make them feel a little warm. But I mean, they had to do their romantic scene in -14. The machinery was freezing. I mean, that was the funniest thing. And poor Lacey, I mean, she's a trooper. She was down in this ice cave doing this wonderful scene, and she couldn't go up to her trailer because it was 20 minutes there and 20 minutes back. But she was a trooper. We got her, the heated packs and the heated things, so she stayed down there. And Lacey is she's also an amazing human being, a great actress. Yeah. I look forward to working with her every time.
When we always hear how wonderful all these actors are and these people to work with, but when you've been in a situation where you haven't been there before, like shooting in ice caves, as a producer, what are you worried about when you're going into places like this?
Well, my number one worry is always safety. That's always a big thing. Safety is always a big concern when you go into either a slightly dangerous location or working with animals, that type of. So it's always safety. Their hours they're working and all that. But we've been doing this a long time, and and early in my career I've done some dangerous things, especially with horror movies. So I know what to look for. And so, we work with professionals and we take every precaution, for safety. We're properly insured. We have the right stunt people. We have medics on board. So we do everything we possibly can to make it as safe as possible. But that's, in the end, it's all the same process to get a movie made. It's just a matter of learning, is it too hot? Is it too cold? Is there wind? Is there rain? So it's always that stuff you're worried about. But I think the number one thing is safety. And, I know movie people, we work long hours. I wish it was 8-hour days, but, it's 10, minimum 10 hours. Most of the time it's 12 to 13 hours of work, and I like it being less hours, but, you got to be careful with people driving. So I think number one thing is safety I worry about.
Well, that's a good thing, I think. Right. It's a good thing to worry about. So you mentioned fans earlier and that you really love making these movies for the connection, because they connect with the fans. And have you had the opportunity to meet many fans?
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is, I haven't gone to any of the cruises. I know they're very popular, and I haven't been to any of the events or anything like that. But I do run into the fans, like, on the street, making the movies. And, you see how crazy, fanatic they are about these movies. They love them. And I get stories about how they helped them through a part in life, or there's something they look forward to. And that's what I like to see. It's like, a lot of my friends make a lot of indie films, and, they get viewed by some people here, and I can't discount them. They did a great job, but I like the fact that, so many millions of people have tuned in to watch these movies and know these movies. And I think Hallmark, a lot of the Christmas movies, not Hallmark, but Christmas movies in general were kind of seen as B movies a while ago.
Right.
But now I think they've reached a new level, especially with Hallmark. Like, they're legitimate movies. And I think stars and talent want to be in these type of movies, because they're getting a little bit more dramatic. They're getting a little bit more funny. The actual production is better,
Right.
than they were. And I think that's the key is like, movies were a little cheaper years ago, but the audience is a lot smarter now, and they know what budget looks like. They know what quality looks like. And I think that's what Hallmark is striving to make: bigger, better looking things, not necessarily a ton of money, but things that look like value. And
Right.
and that's what they're shooting for, because a lot of their competitors are like Netflix. They drop a lot of money and stuff. And I think Hallmark is right up there at the top. They are the number one Christmas destination for movies.
It's interesting that you say that, because, it used to be you just went to Hallmark to watch Christmas movies, then a few other places, and now it's like everyone wants to get themselves some Christmas movies on their streaming platform or wherever it might be. How has that changed things for you as someone who's making these movies?
Well, the one thing about those other people is that they're not Hallmark. I mean, that's the main thing. I mean, Hallmark has their stars, Hallmark has their plots, but the main thing they have is that name, Hallmark. And that's what they are. And I think that's, you can have, other ones are just Christmas movies. Like, I know people that are like, we're getting an investor, we're making a theatrical Christmas movie. But it's like, that doesn't mean it's going to be the Hallmark quality, or it's going to get as many views. It's Hallmark knows what they are and who they are, and they're everything. They're ornaments, they're cards, they're a lifestyle, and I think that's what they're kind of targeting now. And especially with their Christmas experience and their the cruises. So it's Hallmark is like the Disney of Christmas movies, I guess you would say.
Right. When did you start to see that shift where I think, like you said, these have always been a thing, but now it's like this big, huge deal, and it's like very much part of pop culture and it's out there everywhere, and everybody's making them, and everybody's doing that, because I feel like the shift happened kind of quickly. So I'm curious.
I feel like it became a phenomenon in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I feel like it's been the last 3 years, and that's when they really kind of shifted into being like, wow, this is like, they're in the New York Times, they're in all these these big magazines, and stars are trying to get in their movies. And I think they just came out with Hallmark Plus. And I am amazed by how many people have Hallmark Plus, which is great for Hallmark, because we're in Buffalo now, and we walk around, and there's some big gruff men who walk around like, I have Hallmark Plus, and I was like, wow, you have Hallmark Plus. These are like big truck driver guys, and I was like, wow. So I mean, in fact, I would say if I ran into 10 people, 7 of them have Hallmark Plus, which is great, considering the app isn't like Netflix where it has like every single studio on there. This is only Hallmark product. And I really think, their app is actually, I don't know if you guys have it, but I have it. And I think it's very easy to understand. The resolution's great. The audio's great. I think it's definitely the way to watch the movies.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's getting there. There's some glitches, but it certainly is a very convenient way to kind of just have everything that you're looking for, and it's organized and easy to find.
And they'll fine tune. Even Netflix still has its glitches. That's for sure.
Of course.
But coming out of the gate, I think they watched to see what the other streamers did, and they created their own special app. And I thought it worked. I was worried about the glitches too when I first got it, and it was way better than I expected. And like I said, I just love the fact that they have so much content in there, because I know a lot of the fans are like, "Where's this movie? Where's this movie?" And now. Here it is.
Yeah, you can find some of the old classics on there, and the series. So yes, I think people love having it at the palm of their hand, basically. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really brings you to that place where you can find whatever it is and kind of know what you're going to get. Like you said, it's still Hallmark, right? And understand you're going to get that moment of being able to relax and enjoy what's happening. So of the films that you've made, what do you think, which one is the most you, or like shows like more of your personality or what you like to put into these films?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I even really show my personality. I mean, I really like.
You're like,
Which has like your touch.
Your
You know?
touch, like more of your
Yeah.
touch. Like you love how that came out.
Well, I'm kind of involved in everything, but I don't direct, so it doesn't
Right.
have that kind of touch. But I think movies like Next Stop Christmas, because I'm a big Back to the Future, Doctor Who kind of fan. I think something like that is one that I think is closest to my personality.
Yeah.
Next Stop Christmas. The ones that are furthest from my personality are more the basic ones, like Trivia at St. Nick's, which is just kind of a straight up kind of Christmas movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think the ones that kind of veer off a little into time travel, like one of my favorite Hallmark movies is Biltmore Christmas. I think it is the apex of Hallmark because everything about that movie clicked. I can pick out things of our movies that I love and I hate and are medium well done, but Biltmore, it's like the performances were great. Locations were great, the lighting, everything was so great about Biltmore that I think it's the number one Hallmark movie.
Yeah, and well, of course, and anything that Bethany Joy is in is just like always good. So that was the icing on the cake. So you also did the Holiday Touchdown, the Chiefs love story, which was a huge.
Well, my partner produced that. I didn't produce that one.
Your partner produced it.
My
Okay.
partner, Dustin Reichert, who was the executive producer on it, we did the post-production for it, so I do know it pretty well.
Okay.
I do know the movie pretty well, but yeah, I did not produce that one.
No, I was just gonna say like that really threw the Hallmark name out there, and
100%.
yeah, I wonder how it's impacted things for you on the production side and being an independent production company. How has this how has it changed for you? Like, is it giving you more opportunities now that these movies are so out in mainstream culture?
Yeah, well, I think when Hallmark teams with an IP, whether it's a book or an NFL team, I think all of that brings more eyeballs and more attention, and I think it's always good to produce those type of movies because I feel like it does bring more prestige because that was the number one watched movie last year. And the year before was A Merry Scottish Christmas that Dustin and I actually developed. He directed and I produced it. And that was great with Lacey and Scott. Scott's a wonderful guy. I would love to work with Scott again. He's such a funny and creative and nice guy. But yeah, I think, anytime you get, something like the NFL involved, it's very cool to get that, involvement in those type of news and press and media all focused on those movies because it makes the Hallmark movies even more legitimate. I mean, they are legitimate, but now that they're teamed up with like NFL, it's really a big deal.
That is such a big deal because it brings this media to a different group of fans, right?
Yes.
That crossover piece, and that impacts things differently. How do you see some of the technology changes that we're seeing impacting this your type of production? Do you see like AI or virtual productions or other things like that becoming more incorporated into what you do?
Yeah, well, right now, we try and work with the latest technologies. Our lights are LED. We used to, when I first started making movies, we used to have like a trailer that was a big battery that you tow behind a 14-wheeler. But now, batteries pop, power these huge lights, 4K lights, 8K lights. So the physical technology is better. The cameras we use are very good. They're the ones we rent and use on these movies are the highest grade cameras. But we like anybody else, you have to change with the times or you become a dinosaur. Mm-hmm. So our post-production, besides using all the latest technology, we are using AI to assist with audio cleanup, not replacement of actors. I'm not going to replace any actors' voices. So it like for audio clean, like taking birds out or like humming sounds, AI is great for that, for cleaning all that stuff up, making our voice sound full. And we do incorporate AI in a lot of visual effects. So it's making the movies better by adding more, like you can add more realism, like atmospheric stuff. Like we used AI to create a lot of snow on the finish line.
I was just going to say, are we getting
Yeah,
AI?
it made it in it was able to make it in layers. So like instead of just snow in the foreground, when you had the aerial shot, the snow was in front of the trees, behind the dogs, it was all over the place, which would take forever with, hundreds of people working on it. But we were able to use it with a smaller team and create that. So we're using AI as like a component, like an Avid editing system or some type of audio editing, like an Adobe Effects, that type of thing. So right now it's there. Do I foresee a future where AI replaces film production? Absolutely. I think that's going to be in the future, probably within the next 10 years, which depresses me because I love the whole aspect of filmmaking.
Yeah.
But I think once a major studio releases a fully AI film that looks, photorealistic, like you're watching an Avengers movie, I think that'll be the end of physical production, because why would studios, pay 5,000 people to make a movie for $200 million when they can pay 50 people to make the movie for $10 million? So I do feel in the future, the audience is changing. I do feel AI is going to cause a big wrench in the system. But, I can't predict it. Work is actually picking up now in the States, which is great because it was down pretty bad domestically and internationally. So, I mean, I still like real people acting in movies, so hopefully everybody else does too. I
mean, I think most people want real people acting in movies when they're watching them too. Like, it can't be an all good change.
Well, I think that's because we're older. Looking at them, it's the younger crowd you're talking about. Like my 6-year-old Violet, she has never really seen a full-length movie. She knows all the Disney princesses, but she likes these little short YouTube videos that are made by non-professionals. But somehow these non-professionals, I look them up, their net worth is like $90 million. So they must be doing something right. But yeah, I mean, it's the new audience. I mean, that's what's kind of scary. You got AI, you got the expenses going up in America, and then your new audience isn't really like, is my 6-year-old, when she's 25, is she going to care that she's watching a 25-year-old Arnold Schwarzenegger fight aliens for the 10th time? Probably not, because she doesn't have that vested image that we have in, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, when it's going to be his voice and his body and his face still acting. So I think when our generation kind of moves on, I'm much older than you, I think, then it's going to be, the new kids aren't going to really care what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
My opinion. Hopefully not right. Hopefully not right.
You make a valid point. Yeah. I'm just thinking about like what my 7-year-old watches, and it's all a little.
But who knows? It might turn into interactive stuff. There might be, maybe it's going to be interactive where you like tell the Ghostbusters what to do and there's your movie. Or there might be a big slip back to making real movies. And my hope is it just stays, real movies with augmented AI stuff.
That's interesting. Do you see you possibly branching out into other platforms or things like immersive or interactive?
I probably not, because that's more in the video game range, and I'm not into video games as much, so it wouldn't be anything like that for me for video games. But I'm willing to push the movie boundary as much as possible. If there's some interesting immersive movie stuff, definitely, because I'm into learning. I'm into learning new technology, but getting into like. I'm not going to be building any Minecraft stuff. Maybe the Minecraft movie did very well, though. I think the future might be video game movies. Maybe Hallmark will have a video game pretty soon. You never know.
Actually, that's really funny to think about a Hallmark, like a Hallmark Christmas movie video game. Like you can pick your characters, like
And I'm telling you, with genres, a lot of movies are making a lot of money in theaters that are very genre specific, like these Terrifier movies, which I would never watch them, but were made for like, $4 million and made like, I don't know, $400 million. Yeah. And I really think Hallmark, they won't listen to me. I'm sure they won't listen to me. I think they should do a theatrical release. I think a Hallmark, some type of big Hallmark theatrical release movie, I think would be a huge hit, because I think the entire audience would come out to see this thing. But that's just my thought.
Actually, I think
these niche things would work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some of the movies that came out, and Biltmore is probably top on my list, that should have been a theatrical release.
Biltmore could have been theatrical for sure. And that's, I think, because, theaters want this type of content. The theaters want these millions of Hallmark fans to come out and buy these tickets. And you do something like, you release it in theaters, I don't know, maybe 1 year, release the next year. You probably can't do that with today's release schedules, but maybe you release the full version in October, November, and it comes out in December or something like that. But I think a theatrical Hallmark film would be a pretty big hit. But that's only my opinion. I don't know their business. I'm just saying I think their fans would love it.
No, I mean, have you been to you said you have not been to a fan event. I mean,
I've seen the pictures. I've seen the videos.
And I feel like this would do very well. Yes, even if it was just like I don't know, some kind of a special thing, like their anniversary. So we're going to
like a one-off thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they heard it. So when it comes out in 2 years, they're going to know they heard the idea from this podcast.
We're going to clip this and tag everybody.
I think
I would
have like events. They would, like
it would. I think it would be huge. And then on top of it, the release of it on television and streaming would also be huge. It's like the old theater. It's like the old E.T. came out in theaters, then it's on broadcast, then it's on DVD. They could recycle the old style again.
Right.
I feel like it's a win-win, like for the theaters. I feel like are kind of dying out, right? I've had a bunch of them close around me locally, and at the same time, these Hallmark Christmas movies are doing so well. It's just like would be a lovely combination. Yeah, I'm all in. Sign me up. Do you have? Okay, let's say that you had the opportunity to have a release like that. What kind of movie would you want to make? Like, do you have a dream project?
Oh gosh, unfortunately, I think my dream projects are not any, because I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of my dreams come true. So I'm not gonna. A lot of my movies are great because they're ones that we came up with and we're doing. I think my dream job would be to get a job on a Ghostbusters movie or on on a series of, like, Doctor Who's my favorite. Right. If I was brought on to Doctor Who, I'll be a PA. I don't even have to be a producer. I'll be a PA. I will get sandwiches and coffee and everything. But I think my dream right now would to be on something that I grew up with, which is like Doctor Who or Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Ooh, I think Ghostbusters film would be super fun. So.
Yeah, I think they just got to take it back to being, my opinion about that is take it back to being something. Don't make it so complex. They're overthinking these movies.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, and it'll be a great movie.
Just like some feel-good movies about friendships and families. Like, Yep.
Little goofy.
Yep.
All in.
That would be super fun. So you talked about how you went to film school and started right into a production company. Is that the normal way people become in productions, or is there a normal path, or what are some other ways people end up in production? No,
I don't think there's any really set path. I'm kind of an odd duck with that because I'm from Connecticut. I didn't go to Hollywood or New York for school. And I didn't really, I think what helped me was the fact that I was sheltered and I really didn't know how big Hollywood and New York was. Mm. And so when I set out to make movies, all I knew was what I saw on the screen and what's in my head. Like, I feel like if I was, let's say, 21, 22, and I went to LA, I don't even think I would have continued to make movies to see this many people out there trying to make a living. Just knowing what the competition was. I mean, I started this company in synthetic cinema in Connecticut, and I've never had to leave until recently. We started doing movies in other states and overseas, which is only part of growth. But basically, I brought all the studios to Connecticut. Everybody, Netflix and Hallmark and Lifetime and BET and Disney, they all came to Connecticut, and we worked on a bunch of those movies. So that's what was, kind of lucky for me, which most people, I don't think, get that opportunity. And it might be a little dumb luck, might be, I don't know when to give up. But, I think I met the right people and hit the right beats, knock on wood, and it worked.
What was the first project that you completed that you were like, okay, yes, I'm doing the right thing, and like, I can keep going?
Oh, I don't know if I've ever hit that project yet. Every movie I do, I'm like, oh, this will be the last. I seriously, when I'm working on a movie, I'm like, well, this will be the last one I do, because nobody else is going to want to hire me again after this. But there are times like I'm my whole life I've been a huge Meatloaf fan. He's now passed on, but we had him in a movie called Wishing and Hoping, and he played a priest, funny enough. And, you know, he was my childhood hero, and the fact that we hired Meatloaf to be in a movie, like, blew my mind. I was driving into work that day, like, oh my gosh, Meatloaf. And the best part is, we shot in my high school. So Meatloaf came to my high school to be in the movie that I produced. And then he talked to my mother for 3.5 hours, which was also her dream. So it's like weird things like that, you know, pop up. It's like, wow, like this is this is legitimately a very cool thing. And luckily it's been that way for, you know, going on 21, 22 years now.
And hopefully it will keep going.
Hopefully, until we're all virtual reality people.
Hopefully not.
Then you'll have to switch into making video games. Yeah.
Yep.
I really like real people, so.
Yeah, most people do.
Yeah, I'm into real people, yeah.
Is there any part of the filmmaking process that you particularly enjoy?
I think I enjoy, you know, the development process, like coming up with ideas, you know, working with people to, you know, figure out what would be great, what would be interesting. You know, I love big shoot days, you know, with like tons of extras and great special effects or like huge settings. Something that's really like you look around and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm in a movie. You know, it's not like, you know, just a little camera set up with like little bits of things, like when it's like a real movie. Like in the streets of Iceland, we had like this 45-foot techno crane and a 60-person crew and cars moving. I mean, that was like a movie, and that's still, you know, I have to pinch myself because I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool that we're doing this big scene in the middle of this island in the middle of the ocean, freezing.
Isn't it great that you've been doing this for so long and you still have to pinch yourself and look around?
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. Even
Yeah.
You know, what I've been working on recently has been like amazing. So you know, it continues, which I'm very grateful for.
It's amazing. Andrew, would you play a game with us?
Sure, yeah.
All right. It's kind of more like a get to know you game, not
Okay.
a real game. Okay, so we always start with your favorite movie, but since we already know Ghostbusters is
Yep.
probably your favorite movie, let's change it to rom-com. Do you have a favorite rom-com?
Oh, I'm losing it. The one with Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock, The Proposal.
The Proposal.
So good.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so good. Do you have a favorite TV series or something you're currently binging?
Ooh, I do like, well, Doctor Who's my favorite TV series, but I do like that series Reacher, which is on Amazon. It's not a Hallmark series. It's that,
No?
that gigantic guy who just fights people, but it reminds me of the 1980s action films I used to watch as a kid.
Yeah. those were good. Great.
Yeah, that's when the bad guys, you couldn't wait for them to be blown up somehow, because it was just like,
Exactly.
it was time for that one-liner from Arnold being like, you're fired, click, and then that type of thing.
Boom. Then they would just, the whole screen would blow up.
Yep, the whole thing. They don't make them like that anymore.
So
No.
good. It's so satisfying.
Especially when they're really bad guys.
They're in a million pieces. It's like, we're not going to find any of them.
Nope.
Okay, so you are from New England, so do you have a favorite New England food?
Wow. The problem is I like so much stuff. I mean, I probably have to
You can
default
name
by
more
saying,
than one.
well, my favorite food is like good steak. But I do, since I'm from, you know, basically the Mystic, Connecticut area, I'm going to have to say the lobster roll, because that's what everything, you know, the hot buttered one, that's the big competition. Also pizza. You know, we're from Connecticut's calling himself the pizza state. I don't know if that's true or not, but we do have a sign on the highway. And I do
Yes,
like
you do.
that New Haven style pizza, I think is great as well.
I'm a buttered lobster roll girl too,
Yeah.
not the
The
mayonnaise.
mayonnaise one is fine, but it's not really a lobster roll to me.
not
That's
the
more of
same.
like a crab sandwich or something.
Yeah, we don't get those here.
No.
Julie's in Minnesota, so
Oh, I like Minnesota too.
Yeah, there's no lobsters here, though. I mean,
But there's a lot of things happening in Duluth, Minnesota. I know there's some productions happening up in Duluth.
yeah, there's
which
always a little productions in Duluth, Minnesota, which is great. Right there on Lake Superior, and you get the lift bridge
Yep.
and all the blocks.
I knew years ago I toured Duluth, and I'm like, this is where they're going to make Lifetime and Christmas movies here, because I thought it was perfect, and they have good incentives. You know, I've been wanting to get something there, and maybe I will.
Yeah, and it's beautiful up the North Shore. Everything up the North Shore is always so stunning.
Except the winter time, it's not that fun in Duluth.
Well, it's stunning, but it's
stunning, but frozen.
But it's something. But it is stunning. Like it's an inland sea, and you get all the things that go with it. But they're always making productions up there, so that's kind of fun.
It's very cool.
Yeah. So, do you have like a favorite song, or a favorite musician, or a favorite band?
Meatloaf. I'd do anything for love, but I won't do that. See, the problem is I ruined my own game because I've already said everything that I'm favorited.
Yeah, but if I'd have known this ahead of time, I could have changed out my, because I got.
Elton John is. I mean, they're all good.
And, and of course, I have to have Prince.
Prince, Minnesota, you have to have Prince.
Yeah, Prince is a staple, and all the other ones change out.
Yeah, I change them out. I can switch them around. So
very cool.
If I'd have known ahead of time, I could have put up.
You could have had Meatloaf there.
Okay, so Andrew, when you're not making movies, do you have a favorite hobby?
I think really just hanging out with my 6-year-old and 3-year-old, and doing whatever they want to do right now, and enjoying that moment because. I always cry at those videos where it's like, you only know your kids, you only know your children as kids for about 10 years, and I'm trying to take advantage of knowing them, so I try and put as much time into them as possible. So that's my big hobby. My second hobby is dirty martinis whenever I get a chance.
Oh, these are good hobbies.
Sometimes while you're playing with the kids.
Sometimes that happens.
It does go by fast, though. As my kids are getting
really
older,
fast.
It's it hits you every once in a while.
I know. Yep.
It does. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a lot of fun. I know you can't tease a lot about what you have coming up, but is there anything you want to tease that?
Well, I can't really say much, but we do have something, very big happening in Buffalo, which I think everybody's going to hear about very soon. So, keep your eyes open for. It's a little red, white, and blue kind of Buffalo thing.
There's been some talk about Buffalo in the Hallmark world.
Yes, there has.
Released a few things.
I like a lot of talk about that.
A lot of talk about
Buffalo. There's going to be a lot more pretty soon, that's for sure.
Well, we're excited to start learning details about that project. So we'll be watching. I mean, it's on everybody's social media, so I'm sure it'll pop up eventually. Yes.
Yep, pretty soon.
Can't wait. Well, thank you again for being here, and thank you everybody for watching or listening. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Yep. Bye.
Thank you.